Hello again, my name is Kira. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are doing a book review. This is my second time trying to record this video. First time my camera died, which seems to be a theme on my channel now, where my camera dies and I have to re-record videos. This one time was a blessing in disguise because the first take of this was a fucking mess. So, here we go. Today I am doing a book review on Keeper by Kim Chance and Seeker by Kim Chance. Keeper came out last January 2018. Seeker comes out, well, today. This video is going up. The 10th, which is the day that Seeker comes out, which is the sequel to Keeper. So, we're just going to start off with my thoughts on Keeper, and then we'll go into Seeker. So, Keeper, I very much enjoyed. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book follows a 17-year-old girl named Lainey Stiles, who lives an ordinary life. She is a giant bookworm. She is very focused on life. She is a straight-A student. She's just there to do everything right so she can get into college and just have a good life. And all of that is derailed when she gets attacked by a 200-year-old witch in a comic book shop parking lot, and then everything kind of goes haywire after that. She tries to find a reasonable explanation for seeing this witch, but she's also kind of scarred from seeing her because it's a dead ghost. And I'm assuming if I would have seen a ghost, I would be scarred too. You'd see it everywhere. She can't sleep. She's having a hard time sleeping. And then she continues to see the ghost in other aspects of her life, like in the hallway at school, in the streets. And so then eventually she tells her friend about it, her friend Maggie, and then they go to her uncle's sidekick girlfriend, and then all is revealed that Lainey is a keeper, which means she comes from a long line of witches, and her role in her family is to guard the grimoire, which is the spell book of their family that has like all of their spell secrets and everything that they've learned of magical history for like years and years. But the problem is that the master, which is the villain in this book, has stolen the book. So Lainey sets out with her friend Maggie and the street fighter dude, Ty, that she meets to hunt the master down and get the book back. So that's general explanation of this book. We're going to get right into the review, starting off with the writing style. I very much enjoyed the writing style of this book. I didn't really have any big problems with it. There was one part, there were a couple parts where the author would just describe things that weren't necessary because they were told you earlier in the book, and it was like she was elaborating on it to like remind you that it was a thing, even though if you were there, like when you read it, you would already know that. Like there's a part where Lainey's in the street and she sees Ty fighting these 3 other guys, but she doesn't realize it's Ty right away, and she meets him previously at a comic book shop, and then when she realizes it's him, she's like, the boy in the gray shirt is Ty, the guy I met 2 days ago at the comic book shop. But I feel like she could have just said that it was the boy named Ty, because you know that she met him 2 days ago at a comic book shop, because that's where the book starts, at the comic book shop, and it's just things like that. Where it's almost like your reader's not stupid, they'll know this type of stuff. You don't really need to continue to reiterate the same thing over and over again, because if they're paying attention, they should know. You don't have to tell them every time it pops up again what it is, or like what it means or whatever. And then the only other thing that I had with the writing was there were parts where it would just go into great detail about what people were wearing, and it very much reminded me of when I read fan fiction in high school and stuff. That's a very common thing in fan fiction where they'll stop and they'll look in a mirror and they'll just like describe themselves from like head to toe, except the character Lainey did that with like everybody. She would meet a person on the street and she'd be like, they have black floppy hair and blue eyes and they're wearing a a white shirt with the jean jacket and has these ripped jeans on and boots, and like she'll just go down and just describe their entire appearance. And I just feel like unless something on their person or on their body is needed for the plot, I don't really care what they're wearing. Like if it's like a matter of like you're wearing this dress and the dress has importance, or like there's a part where they do like a switcheroo, so they're both wearing the same dress, so they describe the dress, so then you like like they're both wearing the same dress. But like I feel like there's not really any importance to what shoes he's wearing because they don't get brought up again. So those are my only gripes with the writing. Other than that, I very much enjoyed the writing. I thought it was very good. I found a couple spelling errors in the book, but this is a advanced reader's copy. I ordered it used off of Amazon. I didn't know it was advanced reader's copy, so I'm assuming that's the only reason why that there were spelling errors in the book. I didn't find any like grammatical errors or anything. I didn't really look for them. I'm not very good at grammar, so spelling is more my forte, which isn't also really my forte either, so I don't really think I have a forte when it comes to anything but realizing things that get repeated over and over again. Oh, one other thing about the writing style that annoyed me before we move on to the plot. I don't really know if it was a writing style or maybe it was just me being nitpicky. The main character, Lainey's best friend name is Maggie, and I love Maggie, but she has this, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a catchphrase or like something that she says, or like I would understand if it was something that she said because you're trying to keep the book clean, but she says holy crap kittens like 5 times in the book. But she also cusses at other point in times. Like they both cuss at different times. Lane tells herself not to be a chicken shit. Maggie calls someone an ass. In Seeker, Maggie tells someone to stop being an asshole or something like that. But then she turns around and says holy shit kittens or like holy crap kittens. And I don't understand. I don't know if it was just supposed to be something that was endearing or like cute that she said, but it just kind of annoyed me. Other than that, enjoyed the writing style. Moving on. Now we're going to go over the plot of the book. Starting off with the plot of the book, it's very clear just from the beginning that Lainey is a chosen one. She is born into a line of witches. She's the only living relative, only living person left of her line, so she is just inherently the keeper of the book. Usually if there's like more than one person, a person is appointed, but she's the only person left because her mom is dead, her dad is dead, everybody's dead except for the family she has now, which is her uncle and her uncle's girlfriend. And I very much loved her whole power aspect. Instead of it being like something where you have to use your powers with your mind, her magic is very much linked to her emotions. So the fact that she couldn't control her powers was kind of like, you could forgive the fact that she was like, oh no, I'm a chosen one, I got all this stuff thrown at me, and I don't know how to use my powers because all this stuff got thrown at her, and she just found out that all these people in her life were lying to her, and everything that she knew was a lie, and so she's very just like betrayed and sad and confused during a lot of the book, so you can't really be upset that she doesn't know how to use her powers because her powers are linked to her emotions. So like when she gets really sad, her powers will go off and she will like start like a thunderstorm or something, or like it'll start raining, or she'll set fire to a tree or something, like stuff like that. Like it's like she isn't meaning to do it, it's just it happens because she's almost 17 and she just now figured out that she has these powers, and she never had a chance to try to like start to use them or get used to the fact that this is something she's going to have to deal with. She just got like thrusted into it, and then also was thrusted into the fact that there's this guy, the master, that's like coming after her because he thought that he killed off like her entire family, but he didn't know that she was alive. So that was one thing I very much liked about it. Lainey's a very all-around good character. I think that she was pretty well fleshed out. You can definitely feel her emotions and stuff in the book, and I very much enjoy that. Then the next thing I liked about the plot was as I told you when I was explaining it, on the back of the book it starts off when a 200-year-old witch attacks 16-year-old bookworm Lainey Styles. The 200-year-old witch is named Josephine, and Josephine is part of Lainey's, like, she's an ancestor. And the reason why Josephine comes at the time that she does is because Lainey's on the same track that Josephine was 200 years ago. So Josephine forms, it's called a continuance between her and Lainey, where she pops up at times to kind of help guide Lainey through what she's going through, because Josephine and Lainey's storylines are very parallel to each other, and a lot of the things that are happening are the same. So it's pretty much like a thing where, like, Lainey does something and Josephine pops up, and it's kind of like a oh no, don't do that, because, like, I did that and I'm dead. So that's a thing. And I just thought it was very cool because Josephine kind of, like, unintentionally becomes, like, a mentor for Lainey in this book, and helps her through, like, what she goes through to get to the point that she is at the end of the book. And I thought it was very cool that instead of it just being, like, a random person that just shows up that's, like, almost like Harry Potter, like, you're a witch, Lainey. I'm a what? Instead it's like she starts to have hints of her powers. She gets, like, attacked by a tree nymph and stuff before she talks to, like, her uncle or anything about it, and then she really gets the information from his girlfriend first, and then talks to her uncle, and then she's just super upset because he was trying to protect her, but she's, like, part of, like, the most powerful line of witches and warlocks, so it's kind of hard to protect her when you knew that at some point she was going to be coming into these powers, and this is going to be something that she's going to have to learn how to deal with. So yeah, I enjoyed that too. The only thing about, like, plot-wise and everything, pacing kind of was a little up or down. It felt kind of like you're on a roller coaster. There would be times where it'd be super action-packed or super drama-filled, where, like, Lainey learned about how she was a witch and she got in fights with all those people, and then she would disappear, and then it would be, like, just, like, super chill things would happen in between. Like, she got attacked in a graveyard by this tree nymph and had to go into, like, Maggie and the guy Ty had to save her and everything, and then it skips to them being at this diner, and she's just like, well, I can't go home because a big thing in the book where Lainey originally starts off with having hazel eyes, but when she finally comes in tune to her powers, her eyes turn green. Kind of hence why the cover of this book is green. Her magic is green. It, like, crackles between her fingers like electricity. But it's just, since the pacing is kind of all over the place, there'd be times where, like, that would happen, and then they would sit in this diner and be like, well, I can't go home because my eyes are green, and my uncle's gonna know something's up because my eyes are usually hazel, and then, like, a bunch of other stuff will happen, and then they'll just be, like, chilling at school, and then something else big will happen, and then her and Ty will be on a date and playing with bumper cars, and then, I don't know, it just kind of felt like it was all a little all over the place. It took a little bit to get to the big reveal where she's a witch and everything, and then it kind of just a bumpy ride from there. But I think the bumpy rides, the down parts weren't boring enough to make you not want to continue, which is nice. The chapters in the book are fairly short. I would say the longest one that I read was maybe 15 pages. Shortest was like 3. So the chapters are pretty easy to get through. I was kind of doing it chapter based because I annotated the book, and at the end of every chapter, I wrote, like, a summary on a sticky note and stuck it in there to kind of, when I put the book down, then I could, like, read the summary and continue going. But since I forced myself to write a summary of each chapter, it kind of made it easier to remember things that happened in the book too, because I had to, like, think about things so much. But yeah, so I was going chapter by chapter based, and some of them are pretty short. Most of them are pretty short, and it's a pretty quick read. I read it in like a day and a half. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the plot. I think other than that, she has a pretty good character arc. I think she goes from being in denial about all this stuff, and then by the end of the book, she has kind of just accepted it in a way where she is from working alongside Josephine and everything, and then knowing that her mother went through what she did, and her mother died, trying to protect with what she protected. Lainey's kind of like in this thing where she's like, well, I want to do my family right by continuing to try to protect the grimoire and doing what I'm supposed to do in my role of the keeper. So I thought that was cool. Now, going into the characters, one thing I did differently with books than I normally do, since I annotated this one, I put a sticky note in the front of the book and I wrote down every character that came up, like, as I read it. Some of them are they don't come up again, or they are mentioned. There's some of them that are mentioned at the very end of the book that then are more important in the second book, and then some of them are just side characters. So I'm not going to go through all of the characters. I'm mainly just going to go through the main characters and some of the side characters that have enough page time where they're important, I guess. So starting off, we have Lainey. She's the main character of the book. She's very book smart. She's an analytical person. She already has everything about her life mapped out. So when all of this stuff starts happening to her, it's very much confusing, throws a wrench in her plans, and it takes a bit for her to wrap her head around because she didn't ever think that anything like this supernatural would exist in the world, since she's so analytical and looks at everything differently than other people. I liked Lainey. She was pretty easy to relate with being like a bookworm type person and being skeptical about things in the world, and just like her approach on things. I can't really say that I can relate with her in like her family life because my parents are alive. So that part I can't relate to, but just overall, it's like her approach to like school and her book smart and the way that her mind works, more like analytical, and she's not a super emotional person. So then when all of this stuff does hit her and she becomes like more of an emotional person, it's kind of confusing for her because she's not usually like a I cry at movies type person, which I am not a I cry at movies type person. So me and Lainey are kind of one and the same in that. Yeah, so I think the whole book follows her point of view. I think she is a overall good person, which is kind of saying a lot because normally I don't like main characters in books. There's always like one thing that just like is nitpicky to me and I didn't care for it or I didn't like it, but I very much liked Lainey. There wasn't any like things that annoyed me about her. She was a good main character. Moving on to the next person, which is Maggie, Lainey's best friend. I love Maggie. I think the main reason why I love Maggie is just because she's so lighthearted and quick-witted and easy to just get along with from like what you read in the book. She's kind of like a nice balance to Lainey because she jokes around so much. She also very much likes comic books and is like a giant nerd, and she makes a lot of comic book references and just superhero references and everything, just like all the time, which sometimes can get a little annoying. Other times it's funny because she'll explain something in like a comic book reference kind of way, and if you like know the storyline and everything, you can kind of see how like what's happening in the book goes along with what's happened in the comic book, and then like Lainey will be like, "What are you talking about?" And then she'll be like, "Seriously, Styles, you need to read more you need to read more comic books," and like stuff like that. Yeah, but she's just super caring I think one of the things that I very much liked about her was, since her and Lainey are best friends, she's very loyal to Lainey. She is like the ultimate best friend. She gives Lainey the ultimate pep talks. She refers to her and Lainey as Batman and Robin. She is Lainey's Robin. She will do anything for her willingly. There's parts where Lainey will be like, I'm so sorry I got you into this mess. Like, you should just leave. You shouldn't be here. And Maggie's like, we're Batman and Robin. I chose to be here. This is just as much my fight as it is your fight because I'm your best friend. And I just think it's very nice. They're definitely sisters in an aspect. And I feel like there's always times in books between best friends where like something happens, or sometimes they just say things to each other that just isn't, you just wouldn't expect out of a friend, or you're kind of like, well, like, you're not really a true friend because you said that to them. But you never get that from Maggie. You know that Maggie is just there to support Lainey, and Lainey's there to support Maggie. And I honestly feel like if Lainey didn't have Maggie, she wouldn't have made it through what she made it through, because Maggie gave her so many pep talks and like pushed her along and was like, you can do it, and was like the ultimate cheerleader for Lainey. So yeah, I very much enjoyed Maggie's character. Besides the holy crap kittens thing, I very much enjoyed her character. She makes supernatural reference. She makes comic book references all the time. And I just, it's fun. She's a fun character to read. I very much enjoyed Seeker in that aspect because Seeker goes between Lainey, Ty, and Maggie's point of view, so you get to read from Maggie's point of view, which those are like my favorite chapters because I just love Maggie. So yeah, that's Maggie, or Mags. That's what Lainey calls her. Moving on to Ty. His name is Tyler, but he goes by Ty. He is the mysterious street fighter that Lainey meets at the comic book shop the very first day. She's kind of like, do I know you from somewhere? And he's like, no, you don't. She learns as she goes that Ty is he's a very understanding person. He doesn't need any explanation from you as to why you're feeling the way that you're feeling or why you're doing what you're doing. He will just support you in it if he believes in you as a person, which I think is very nice. He very much has like the tragic backstory type guy, but he doesn't let his misfortune make him treat other people like shit. But his misfortune definitely is his driving force in the book, and the thing that helps him make a lot of the decisions that he makes in the second book and kind of in the end of the book. But Lainey definitely like drives a wedge in that because he is a Paradorian, something like that, where he is in the supernatural world. He already knows about all this stuff, and so Lainey is always confused when stuff happens, like when she gets attacked by the tree nymph and everything, because he doesn't. She's like, there's one part where she's like, I think I owe you an explanation, and he's like, you don't owe me anything. I just want to know that you're okay. And at first, when you first go into it blind, not knowing that he is what he is until he tells her about it later, you just think that he's just this like super awesome guy and he's just super supportive and he doesn't need any understanding. He doesn't need to know why that tree tried to kill you or why there was that green flash of light and why you're seeing a dead lady. Like, he didn't need any understanding for that. He was just there to support her and was trying to be a good person. But later you find out that Lainey is his calling, which means that they are linked, like emotionally and physically, so he can feel when she's hurt. He has a special connection to her. He is basically like her supernatural guardian in a way, and that's why he is so understanding of this stuff, because he already knows like what she is, and he is kind of like universally or just like spiritually in tune with her, so he doesn't really need any explanation from her because he already just knows from their connection that they have. But he's a very down to earth person. I love him. I loved him in this book until the ending when he does something awful, and then I wanted to stab him. He was a bitch. But he was also a very good character. These characters they're very well fleshed out. It's really hard to find any problems within the characters. You can tell that this author spent a long time working with these characters or developing these characters so that there'd be no, they're true, it's almost like they're true people. You can feel it. There's like, if you told me, like if I met Lainey on the street, I would just believe that she was a real person, because they're so well thought out as people and so well written on the page. I love them all. Moving on to the next character that we have is Gareth. I think that's how you say his name. Gareth. He's Lainey's uncle. He is her guardian. He is pretty much like her dad figure in her life. He's very, they have a very close connection. He is a very chill person. He isn't very strict, which, I mean, with how Lainey approaches school and everything, he doesn't really have to be strict because she just kind of like does it herself. And he's just like an overall really nice person. You can tell that he is very down to earth. He wants to understand Lainey and is always there for as a shoulder to cry on. And yeah, that's Gareth. You don't see him as much, but you can tell that everything that he did, because he hid this whole world from Lainey and everything he did it with like the purest of heart, which you can tell just from the way like they talk and everything. He was just trying to keep her safe because he was very close with her mom and just didn't want to see Lainey die the same way that her mom did. So yeah. Next character we have is Serena, which is Gareth's girlfriend. She is like Lainey's mother figure in her life. She is very spiritual, very in tune with the earth. She sages. She has a bookshop and she does tarot card readings on the side. Since Lainey is so analytical, she kind of describes her as kooky. She thinks that she's off her rocker. My mom is very much like Serena in the real world, in not tarot cards as much, but she likes to sage and she's very spiritual and very in touch. And so I very much like Serena's character because you don't really see people like that as often in books. I know the main reason why she was in here was just because there's witches, and usually when people like sage and stuff, they're a witch, but I liked her. She's very chill. She is a psychic, so she gets visions and stuff, and she can see people's auras. And so she was kind of would help Gareth in, like, they put like protection spells and stuff on Lainey to try to hide her from the master, which once Lainey's powers start to grow, the spells don't work anymore because her powers are so strong. But she had like the purest of heart in the beginning, pretty much, and I just think if your mom dies, Serena's like the best mom figure to get in replacement because she's just so cool. And she makes snickerdoodle cookies all the time for Lainey because she knows that they're her favorite. And it just made me want to have cookies when I read that part. So, that. Moving on to the next person. I don't really know. I would say that she's the main character just because there are actual, like, chapters in her point of view, which is Josephine. She is the 200-year-old witch. Lainey refers to her as the Bloody Woman for a good chunk of the story because she doesn't know that her name is Josephine. And when Lainey first sees her, she is, like, her whole dress is, like, soaked through on her abdomen and everything because she gets, like, stabbed or something when she, like, actually dies. And it very much, like, haunts Lainey because she's never witnessed anything like that in her life. I very much liked Josephine. She's a very strong-headed person. She fights for what she believes in, and she sacrificed herself for her kid. I don't know. I liked Josephine. She doesn't really come up too much. Like, she doesn't talk a lot in the book until more, like, in the end. Because at the very end of the book, she passes over in the veil, and she can't, like, come back to, like, the earth plane anymore. And that's the most that she talks to Lainey. And she kind of explains some things to Lainey and everything, and then just kind of, like, I'm growing weaker because this is the end of our path with each other, so I'm going to have to cross over. I wish you good luck, and I'm always watching over you, like with your parents and stuff. And I don't know, I just thought it was nice because even though Lainey had Gareth and Serena, she also got like another type of like authority figure kind of in her life to help her that more like firsthand actually like understands her powers and understands everything that's going on than Gareth and Serena, because they don't have powers. Gareth is revealed to be a fairy, and Serena is a, what do they call her, a seer, where she just gets like visions and stuff. But yeah, and then the other main character is Emmett, which is the master. He's the villain in the story. He is very cruel. You can just tell from the way that he is. He very much gets off on people's pain, on hurting people, and he just wants to be in power. I think he's a very good villain. You see more of him in the second book, but yeah, he didn't have. I always love the villains where they're not written, like it's like a movie, and they creep around and they like have their big monologue where they tell everybody what the grand master plan is to take everybody down and everything. He didn't have any moments like that. He was just a good villain, and you could just tell from the way that he acted and stuff that he was evil, not because he told you that he was evil, which was nice. And then moving on to the side characters, I would say the only people that really, inside characters that are really probably important to know is there's Zia. She is a leader of the, I'm going to call it the Age because I don't know how to say it. It's like pretty much like the rebel alliance against the Master and his people, like the Master and his guard and everything. And then she has her guys. The only one that really pops up the most is Julian, and he's a skipper, which means that he can like pretty much travel places. Other than that, there's not really any other side characters that are important to know, except for there's Lane Dukarma, which is Josephine's dad, and the guy that Lainey is named after. He is the person that he's the reason why the Master is pretty much after Lainey, because the Master is trying to find the spell to siphon all magic from the whole entire supernatural plane so he can be like all powerful, and Lane takes the spell and hides it in the book, and you can only access the book if you are a family member. So pretty much like the Master has the book, but he doesn't have Lainey, so he needs Lainey to be able to use the magic. And that's one reason why Lane is like important. He's pretty much the person that set all of this stuff in motion for Lainey now, like 200 years later. Yeah, so that is all of the characters. Moving on to descriptions. This is where I put in the only things about the descriptions that I didn't like was there were parts where they very much drew you out of the story because it felt like you were in a fan fiction and they were describing everything that they were wearing. Everything from hair, eyes, freckles on their face, one weird mole, like stuff like that. And I just felt like it wasn't needed unless it was like something that was going to affect the plot line later or something that like defined the character. Like they always wear leather jackets, or she always wears bows in her hair, or she only wears a certain pair of tennis shoes, like something like that. Something that like is defining to her personality. But if it's like every time you see them, you're describing from head to toe what they're wearing, I'm not going to care because people change clothes every day. Unless they're a cartoon character, they're going to change clothes every day, and I'm not going to remember everything that they wear every time that a day changes, and I don't care enough. So, yeah, that's descriptions. Next thing that I have is format. Only thing I didn't like about the format in this book was there was an excessive use of italics. There were parts in Lainey's thoughts that were italicized, and you could tell they were supposed to be like putting emphasis on it. And it was just a lot, because then there were flashbacks that were in italics, and then her thoughts were in italics, but then like there'd be parts in speech that were in italics. There's just a lot of italics in the book, And I love italics as much as the next person. I just think that it could have been maybe toned down a bit. I counted in one chapter. There's 11 moments in the chapter where just random parts of her thought are italicized to kind of show you like the importance of it. But then there's also an entire flashback scene, it's a dream for Lainey, but flashback scene for Josephine that's in italics, and it's just a lot. So that's my only gripe about the format. Other than that, I thought it was cool that every once in a while the chapters would change to Josephine's point of view. So you're reading from Josephine's point of view, but it was really like a dream that Lainey was having where Josephine was telling her what was happening, or like a moment where Josephine took Lainey out of like the world that she was in and into her world, so Lainey could like firsthand see what happened to Josephine to get her to where she is. So then Lainey could kind of see that like her story match is Josephine, and this is why Josephine is doing what she's doing. So yeah. Other thing I have is I have my other section, which is the only thing is the excessive comic book references. I think some of them are fine, the ones that really make sense to the book, but I think my main problem with it is Lainey isn't a comic book person. In the very beginning of the book, they're at a comic book shop, but not because Lainey wants to be there, because she agreed to go with Maggie, because then Maggie said that she would help her study for her stats. And so Maggie makes a lot of comic book references, but then half the time Lainey doesn't even understand what she's saying because she doesn't read comic books like Maggie. And so they kind of are useless, because then Maggie spent this entire time talking about like Spider-Man or Rogue or Wolverine or something, and then Lane doesn't even know what the fuck she's talking about because she doesn't read comic books. So I think that the references could have been taken down a notch. Some of them are really funny. There's a reference about Supernatural, which I'm always a sucker for a Supernatural reference. After Lainey finds out that her uncle is a fairy, she's like, I just found out that I'm a keeper of this and that I'm a witch and all this stuff, and I found out that my uncle is freaking Tinkerbell, which I thought was funny because I love Tinkerbell. But yeah, so other than that, that's what my thoughts are on Keeper. 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, because the rest of my things, I just have my book notes in my notebook. So yeah, that's Keeper. Now, we're going to move on to Seeker. I will throw a picture up on the screen right here for most of this, so you guys can just see what I'm talking about, I guess. So, moving on to Seeker. Starting off with Seeker, this is where Lainey's life isn't normal anymore. Her family is dead, and she's struggling with her new role as the Keeper and her newfound power that she has unlocked. With her magic and her emotions linked together, she's finding it very hard to master her powers when she is heartbroken and angry. Because at the end of Keeper, Ty reveals that he is part of the Guard, which is the people that work for the Master, and so she feels very betrayed because she doesn't know whether or not he was actually helping her because he cared for her, or if he was just helping her for his own gain. So that's why she's like... She's also heartbroken because she has to kill her uncle in the end of this book, which is another spoiler. Because he's tortured to death, and then the Master brings him back with dark magic, and so he's not her uncle anymore, and they're just trying to use him to get her to like give in and help the Master, and so she kills him, because that's the thing in Josephine's storyline that she didn't do right. Her lover gets brought back for dark magic, but Josephine doesn't kill him, and so Lainey kills him because she doesn't want him to suffer with the dark magic anymore, and then she can get away doing that. So, in action with everything that happens, Lainey and Maggie join a group of supernatural rebels and hope to bring down the Master. And during this, we also go through Maggie's point of view, where her dream comes true at a cost. She is bit by a shifter in the first book. And Ty will stop at nothing to get what he wants, even if it means hurting the person that he loves. So, moving in to writing, I will say that the writing very much improved from the first book. There were still moments where the author felt like the author thought you were stupid because she would elaborate on things that you should know. And then there were also still some of the parts with like excessive description. Like, I understand that the author is trying to get her point across, but I almost feel like it maybe been more of a word count situation where she was trying to hit word count, so it just kind of turned into a lot of repetitive, repeating things. But other than that, writing was great. I think it definitely improved from the first book. You could really feel like people's emotions and stuff. So yeah, moving into the plot. I love the fact that a good part of the book, Lainey is working with two people on her powers. She starts with working with Zia, who has a very cold-hearted approach to it, because Lainey's super whiny during this part and is like, I just want to help. I just want to do whatever I can to help. But in the first book, she leveled a house because she doesn't know how to use her powers. So Zia, whatever her name is, literally tells Lainey, like, you are going to help, but your way of helping us right now is learning how to use your powers. So it's kind of annoying listening to Lainey the entire time, because Zaya is like telling her that she is being selfish because Lainey just wants to help and be part of whatever's going on, but Zaya is trying to get the point across that, like, your help is learning how to use your power, because your power is what we need to stop the Master. And then they find out that Lainey, the reason why she can't control her powers isn't because she's not, like, focusing and everything. Like, she's focusing on it. It's because her emotions are linked to her powers. So then it moves to Lainey working with Teddy, who is this older lady on, like, they call it the farm, but it's pretty much like their base where their alliance is. And Teddy understands more of, like, the emotional magic part, so she helps Lainey figure out how to conquer her emotions. And pretty much the reason why she can't control her powers is because since she's so heartbroken and she's trying to, like, cut her emotions off and ignore those emotions, it's more of a matter where she needs to let those emotions out and accept the fact that this stuff happened, and forgive herself and forgive other people to be able to use her magic the way that she should be able to use. And I think Teddy takes a good approach to it, because she's very, like, understanding, and she's very nice about everything. She doesn't get mad at Lainey when she messes up or anything. She's just kind of like, just sometimes bad things happen, and you either need to forgive yourself or you need to forget the person. You're never going to be able to move on, which is very true. Then, another thing that I love about the plot is, Lainey and Ty. Since Lainey is Ty's calling, in this book, it's very much more touched upon that they are emotionally linked. So, like, Ty can feel Lainey's pain if she so wants him to. Or, like, if she specifically pushes, like, a certain thought to him, he can hear it in his head, since they're linked together. And I think it's very cool, because it's kind of, like, it helps Lainey forgive Ty, because even in moments where he's trying to explain himself, it almost sounds like he's lying to her, and it's hard for her to understand or be okay with what's happening, but then she can feel his emotions and feel that he's actually really conflicted with what's going on, or he can push, like, his thoughts to her, and she can tell that, like, he's really sorry, and he's just stuck in this mindset where he can't figure out whether or not he wants to be on the good side or he wants to be on the bad side, because he usually wants to be on the side where the Master goes down, because the Master killed Ty's dad. And so Ty's whole purpose in life is to bring the Master down. And he thought that the way of doing it was to join the Guard, and that didn't prove well for him, so now he's trying to join their side. But since he, like, betrayed everybody at the end of the book, everybody kind of has trustworthy issues towards him, because they don't really know, like, what he's going to do. He has moments in the book where he gives up information to the Master, and he explains it as, like, which is true, like, if he didn't give the Master any valuable information, he would just be dead, because the Master would kill him, because he's not helping out like he's supposed to. And so, since he has his link with Lainey, it's easier for them to kind of understand each other. He also uses it as a way to lure Lainey, because when they're on the farm, they have these protections put up to where, like, no one can feel Lainey's powers, or, like, they have, like, intense magic put up. And Maggie convinces Lainey to leave the farm so they can get some fresh air. And Ty can, like, he has a very weak sense of where she is, so it's kind of like he's just been blindly following this, like, weak sense that he has to try to find Lainey. And so when she finally leaves, like, the barrier, he can feel her, and he uses it to lure her in, and that's how he gets into their camp, because she thinks that she's helping this just random kid, but really Ty has had a trickster, like, cover up his appearance of what he actually looked like, and it's Ty just trying to get back to Lainey. So yeah, I thought that whole plot line was cool. The whole calling and everything very much shows their relationship and everything, and it helps. It kind of was like a more intense way for them to have a bond with each other than just, like, sharing what they have in common and just super trusting each other. So yeah, then one of the problems I had with the first book that I didn't touch on, but I'm gonna touch on it here, was I saw a lot of the very big plot twists coming from, like, a mile away. Like, I saw after Maggie gets bit by a shifter, she is going to transform into a shifter. I saw that coming, like, the moment that she got bit. From, like, the moment Ty even started on page 1, I had a feeling that he was going to do something to betray Lainey in some way. So when he revealed himself as a member of the Guard, I was not surprised, because I had a feeling that that was going to be, like, one of the big things that he was going to do to betray her. And so it was a little bit why I didn't give the book 5 stars all the way, just because I saw a lot of, like, the big parts of the plot coming. I saw some of the plots coming in, some of the plot twists and stuff coming in Seeker, but not nearly as many as I saw in Keeper, and it definitely made the experience of Keeper a more enjoyable one than with the first book. So yeah, I just think that I can understand that the author was probably trying to, like, you know, like, you sprinkle in, like, snippets, or you have, like, little, like, red herrings or whatever to make people think one thing, but then one thing really happens. I think that she did a really good job sprinkling in the snippets, but she didn't really put any, like, red herrings or anything to divert your attention anywhere else to make you think that it could possibly be something else. So then if you kind of came on the conclusion of one thing, it was that thing. So I think if she would have just put more red herrings in the book, it would have just been amazing, because then you wouldn't have seen, like, any of the plot twists coming, because then you would have been like, well, wait a second, but this happened, and so then maybe this is the person that would do that instead. So yeah, that's my only big gripe about the plot. Moving on to the pacing of the novel, I would say that Seeker definitely had better pacing in the aspect of it didn't feel like you were on a roller coaster. This one kind of more like it started off slow and then gradually just, like, hit this peak of action, and then it kind of, like, dropped off. And I feel like the ending could have given you a little bit more, like, of a wrap-up explanation of, like, everything that happens with everybody, because there's, like, this grand fight on the farm and on their land and everything. They don't really touch base on, like, what happens after that, or, like, what they do to try to fix all of the damage and stuff. But yeah, other than that, pacing wasn't bad. And then the other thing that I really loved about the book in general, since you got multiple point of views, you had Lainey's point of view, which she was really whiny at the very beginning when she was trying to learn how to use her magic, which kind of annoyed me. I loved Maggie's point of view just because I love Maggie. I don't really know if she brought anything, like, super special to the story. She was almost more of, like, a lighthearted thing that would pop up in the middle to kind of, like, broke up all of, like, the sadness from Lainey and the tension between other characters, and, like, the tension between Lainey and Ty and his conflict in his brain that he's trying to figure out. But since we got to see Ty's point of view too, which the book starts in his point of view, which I wasn't expecting, and I thought it was a very interesting like twist, and it just starting off in Lainey's point of view. But since he was so torn between his need to follow the master, since he's a member of the guard, and his belief of the Paratorian or whatever he is, and his calling with Lainey, he has a lot of like mental just struggle in the book, where he's very much just fighting with himself because he doesn't know what he wants to do. And he doesn't know what the right thing is to do anymore, because he was just trying to do the right thing to avenge his father, but then he has his father in the back of his mind talking to him, where his father is disappointed in the things that he's doing. So then he just doesn't know what to do anymore. And I just think it's really cool to see his struggle as a character and his struggle with what he's trying to figure out, and the way that he redeems himself in the end, because he like makes a deal where he wants to be the last person to send a blow to the master, but at the very end of the book he doesn't care anymore, because he just finally chose like not the good side, not the bad side. He chose like Lainey and chose happiness and chose to just be a good person, which I think overall couldn't have been any more of a better character arc for him, since he was having so much struggle in the book. And I very much enjoyed his chapters in reading from his point of view, because it was like it was just a big, but what if this, what if that? I just so much push and pull from two different sides that you could really feel his struggle, and I liked it. So, the characters, we have three main characters. There are Lainey, Maggie, and Ty. All the chapters switch between their point of view, so you get to see like a little bit of every main character too, which I think is really fun. I think everybody has very much grown as characters. Lainey has learned to accept her new abilities and everything, so then her new struggle in this book is that she just needs to learn to forgive herself and forgive other people, so she can actually like fully conquer her powers and just like everything that is going on. And Maggie is still the supportive bitch that she always is. I think Maggie's character arc, you could kind of say, is probably mainly coming to terms with being okay with being ordinary. In the first book, she very much talks about how she doesn't want to just be an ordinary person. She wants to have her radioactive spider moment, her super soldier serum, something to make her more than ordinary. And when she gets bit by the shifter, she's super excited because she is going to turn into a shifter, but then instead it goes south and it turns into, the bite is like poisoning her and she's like dying, and she's not a shifter at all. And so she kind of has to come to terms with the fact that she's still more than ordinary, even just being a human and not having special powers like everybody else that's around her, which I think is a very cool arc to have as like a character in a book surrounded by supernatural beings. And then Ty has his realization where revenge isn't always the thing that you need, and sometimes you just need to learn to let go, which is kind of like the same arc that Lainey has, which maybe that's just why they're so perfect for each other, because they're having the same struggles throughout the entire book. And then the other main characters we have are Zaya, whatever her name is. She is super angry, grumpy all the time, which is rightfully so, because her half-brother is the master. That's a spoiler, also, so yeah. Maybe I should cut that part out. But she is super, like, she's very much a leader. She's the person that's in charge of the whole alliance, the H. I don't know how to say it, so it's going to be called the H. And she's just trying to do whatever she can to bring the master down, because she wants all of like the supernatural people to be able to live in peace and not be afraid of this guy that's threatening to like take their powers from them and everything. So she is just very like, come on, like we need to go. Like everybody fall in line. We have like a master plan that we're going to do. Nobody not follow the plan because this is the only way that we're going to win type of thing. And she, I think she's just overall very much like, she's very much a badass. Then we have Teddy. Her name is also Theodora. She is Zaya's mom, and later revealed the Master's mom too. And she is a very wise witch. Um, she owns the farm. She's kind of there like a helping hand, but she isn't trying to pick a side. She doesn't want to be part of the alliance. She's just kind of there, and it's constantly like a struggle between her and Zaya, because Zaya's always trying to get her to join in like their council meetings and everything, and she's just like, nope, you already know where I stand. You already know where I stand, and it's just like later revealed that it's because her other kid is fighting the other side. So then there's Oliver. He is a shifter. He is super grumpy, just like all the time. He has his own struggle in the book. He has like a small arc where he was supposed to be the leader of the shifter faction. Then he leaves because of things that happen. And him and Maggie cross paths because when Maggie first thinks that she's going to become a shifter, Julian's like, you need to train with Oliver because he's the best shifter that we have. And then she finds out that she's not actually a shifter. But then her and Oliver end up like continuing to have a relationship, which is just really funny because he's like super serious and grumpy, and he doesn't understand like any of her references, or doesn't think any of her jokes are funny. So it's just really funny watching them like banter with each other, because she'll just like say something and it'll just go straight over his head, and like everybody else will laugh, and he's like, what's so funny? Because he's so serious and grumpy all the time, and I love it. I just love Maggie, and I love him and her together in chapters. And when she gets sick, he like talks to Lainey and is like, is she okay? And Lainey's like, you can go in and see her if you want. And he's like, why would I want to do that? And Lainey's like, okay, well, never mind. I thought you liked her, but whatever. But yeah, I always love a good grumpy character where they're just like comically grumpy. They're my favorite. And then there's the Master. Again, he's the same evil, angry person, but they find out that he is growing weak from the dark magic that he's using, and they're using like, he has like his followers using like a blood spell that's keeping him alive. But pretty much like if he doesn't fight this fight and get the spell to siphon all the magic from the world, he's gonna die. So he very much is like on a mission in the book because it's life or death for him. And yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so my camera fucking died on me again. So I'm recording the rest of this video on my phone because I need to get this fucking review done because I need to edit it because this video was to go up tomorrow. So here we go. I think I was talking about Serena. So Serena in the book doesn't come up as much as she did in the first book. She's very sad the entire book because of Gareth's death, and has a hard time looking Lainey in the eye because Lainey's the one that killed him, but Lainey kind of didn't have any choice because like he was either that or he was going to suffer. So they kind of come like full like circle at the end of it where she's like, Lainey's like, I need you because like Gareth's gone, and besides like Maggie and Ty, you're like the only family I have left, so I need you to stay with me. And other than that, there's not really like any other characters that are like super pivotal except for Ajay. He's the leader of the shifters. There's a part where Maggie and Oliver go to the shifter faction because they're trying to bring all the factions together to join their alliance, and so Oliver goes to the shifter faction and try to convince them to say yes because their original attempt at trying to get the factions to say yes goes wrong because they try to showcase Lainey's powers, and Lainey almost kills Maggie in the process of doing it, and herself. So then all the factions are like, there's no way in hell we're joining you guys when that's what your weapon is, because she's a fucking mess. And so Oliver goes to the shifter faction, and Maggie makes him take her with, and they are there for a little bit, and then Oliver and Ajay have like their quarrel or whatever, and Maggie and Ajay have some witty banter. But other than that, that is all the characters of Seeker. So moving on to descriptions. The only thing, like I said at the beginning, was there was still the excessive descriptions of what people are wearing and what everybody looks like. But other than that, everything was solid. It was fairly easy to imagine the world that she was trying to create, to see the farm that everybody was on, because I spent a lot of time on there, and to like understand like that the master was dying and like stuff like that. So that's descriptions. Moving on to format, I very much enjoyed the fact that it was in multiple point of views. I love books that are in multiple point of views. I am always down to see multiple characters' point of views, because you get to see the side of everybody and how everybody sees everybody, and I just love being in more than one person's head. And then there were still a lot of italics, but I mean, like, what can you do? That doesn't, I mean, I loved the book anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And then other than that, there was one moment in the book that kind of gave me deja vu, where they, Zaya, whatever the fuck her name is, I still know what her name is, and I'm never gonna know what her name is, unless I watch Kim's video where she talks about her Dreamcast. I should link those videos in the cards. She has a Dreamcast of Keeper and Seeker, so you kind of see, like, who she would want to play her people if these books were made into movies. But where she said that they need to bring all the factions together against the Master, and Lainey would be their pawn to persuade the factions to fight against the Master, which very much reminds me of Hunger Games. If you've read Hunger Games or you've seen the movies, they have Katniss becomes the Mockingjay, and they go from oh my god, what are they called? Districts. There we go. They go from district to district to try to get the districts like on their side to rile against President Snow and everything, and that's what this kind of reminds me of, except the only difference is Lainey doesn't want to be the weapon because she's afraid of what her powers are going to do because she still can't control them. But yeah, that gave me a very Hunger Games deja vu moment. Other than that, that is it for this video, my review of Keeper and Seeker. I usually do a questions that I have section, but I guess I didn't have any questions because my little section here in my notebook is blank. I very much enjoyed these books. I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. I think, honest to God, I would love if this book was made into a movie because I really want to see Lainey's magic brought to a screen, because the way that it's described is so cool. The green like crackles between her fingers and everything, and I really just want to see it happen on a screen. And I'm also just a sucker for anything supernatural. They have like all of the factions. They go through and name all of the faction leaders, and Lainey goes through and describes them all. So they have werewolves, nymphs, shifters, witches and warlocks, vampires. Like, they have like the whole 9 yards of supernatural characters, and I would love to see like another type of like witchy supernatural situation with vampires and stuff that isn't like Twilight. I think it'd be cool, and yeah, I would just love to see these books be brought to a screen, because I think they'd be a good movie, and I'd very much enjoy that. Yeah, other than that, that's the end of this video. Ignore the fact that this angle is completely different than the other hour of the video or whatever. This is gonna take me forever to edit. But yeah, thank you for watching my video. If you like videos like these, I will link at the end of this video my playlist of all my book reviews. I try to do a book review every month. I'm trying to read all of the AuthorTube books that there are out there. But yeah, please like this video to tell me that you like these videos, and comment below if you've read the book, if you would read the book based off of what my review was. If you have other opinions about things, I would love to hear about that too, or just other AuthorTube books that you know of. I have like an ongoing list that I've been making, but more people keep popping up that have self-published and stuff that are on AuthorTube. I'm trying to find them all because I want to read them all, because I want to support the indie authors and just anybody here on YouTube that is doing the same thing as me, that likes to write. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more of my face. I try to post every Sunday and Wednesday. Usually if I miss a Sunday, I post on a Wednesday. And if I miss a Wednesday, I post on a Sunday. So far, that is what my thing has been. But yeah, thank you for watching my video and have a good day. Bye!